The man, the myth, the legend, Christoph Strasser, joins us to discuss his ultra-cycling journey and the road that led him to become the famous six-time Race Across America champion and record-setting ultra-athlete that he is today. Amongst his many achievements, he is also a frequent keynote speaker and the author of the popular book Strasser's Road, the story of the record-setting Race Across America winner. Christoph holds the 24-hour indoor record of 941 kilometers, which was the toughest thing he has ever done, and also held the outdoor road record for over 5 years with a distance ridden of 896 kilometers covered in 24 hours. Along the journey of his 9 RAAM participations, he became the only 6-time champion and still holds the speed, time, and under 50 age category records for his 2014 performance with a total time of 7 days, 15 hours, and 56 minutes. That was his second performance under 8 days and still the only ultra racer to ever break that time barrier. In this first episode with Christoph, we take a whirlwind tour of his ultra-cycling career, from RAAM to Race Around Austria to world records, discussing training, nutrition, pacing, race strategy, and much more. It's a fun and candid conversation with the world's greatest ultra-cyclist, and just the beginning of our discussions. Stay tuned for the following episodes. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in to today's very exciting episode with the man, the myth, the legend, Christoph Strasser himself. He joins us today to discuss his ultra cycling journey and the road that led him to become the famous and only 6-time Race Across America champion and record-setting ultra athlete that he is today. Amongst his many achievements, he is also the author of the popular book, Strasser's Road, the story of the record-setting Race Across America winner. Christoph, thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Hi, Justin. It's great to be there. Hi.
Yes, and I love the backdrop there. I see a lot of nice memorabilia, Race Across America sign there, and also another one there. I think I've seen that on one of your T-shirts, right? What does that say? Ride, eat, ride.
It was one of the ideas that popped up in my mind while having an indoor training session, and it is the slogan "Ride, Eat, Sleep," but the new version is "Ride, Eat, Ride," which is the idea of ultra cycling.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And of course, you embody that very well. So it is fitting for you to wear such a T-shirt. Now, Christoph, for us Americans who do not speak German, what is the correct way to say your name?
You have done it perfectly. So Christoph Strasser is good. It's not a complicated pronunciation.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Strasser. Okay. Because I've heard it said many ways. They all sound excellent and very cool, but it's nice to hear it from the man himself. And so, of course, Christoph, it's very exciting to have you on the show. Thanks for making the time to share your experiences, your successes, and also just the fun, because, you know, one of the things that makes you a great role model and inspiration and ambassador for the sport of ultra cycling is that not only are you a very serious rider, very dedicated, motivated, you train hard, you race hard, and you put on a great show at every event that you do, but you also have a very fun personality to you, which keeps it lighthearted. Sometimes when we're racing, it can be, you know, very, very focused, very competitive, but, you know, even just this nice smile that you have here, and even here on your 6th RAAM win, it brings a lot of light into the world. And so I just wanted to give folks a glimpse of some of the photos that you've sent through that we'll be able to discuss here. Of course, even some with Jure Robic and Marco Ballo, of course, 2 legends in the sport, including yourself. Race around Slovenia, your world records, 24-hour, the race around Austria, and all of the exciting events happening over there. Of course, on the indoor velodrome. And, of course, you are very busy, not just training and racing, but you have a book, Strasser's Road. Folks can check that out and get inside the mind of the ultra champion himself. Very cool. And then, of course, you have spoken to very large crowds of all kinds. So many know some of your story. But of course, today we hope to learn even more. So, Christoph, before we get into all of that, I'd love to start with a short sprint round of questions, a short series of questions to get to know you in a nutshell in a fun way. Of course, the first question is, well, when did you even start cycling in general?
I started cycling when I was a kid. I got my first bike as an Easter present when I think I was 6 years old. But of course, that was nothing to do with sports. It was just, finding the love of biking when I was a kid. And then after school, when I entered university, I found out that there is a lot of time in the afternoon, and it's even possible to not go to university, but instead go for a bike ride. And it was also that time when I watched Race Across America reports on TV. And from that time on, I was a big fan, and I was fascinated of these ultra cycling races, and especially of Wolfgang Fasching, who is a great guy from Austria, 3-time RAAM winner. He was very popular, and a lot of media coverage around him and around the race. So I got infected by the excitement of long distance biking. And from that year on, I would say 2002, when I was 20 years old, I started training and I started riding more and more. And I did my first 24-hour races in the same year, not on a high level, but just for fun and just to try it out.
Interesting. So 2002. So would you say that is when you began ultra cycling?
Yes, I've tried to begin. It wasn't really I wasn't really fit and not really strong that time, of course. But in 2006, I started really training on a high level. And from 2006 until today, I did at least 30,000 kilometers each year. So that was 2006 was my beginning of real good training.
Wow, incredible. So you said 30,000 kilometers, that's just under 19,000 miles per year. So that is a lot of riding that you're doing every day. And I'm looking forward to being able to discuss that sort of training and what that means for you as we get going here. But so you started really riding ultra cycling 2002. So that was 18 years ago already. And even high level training in 2006. So that's 14 years ago. So that's a very long time to be competing at such a high level, being so focused and motivated. And it's not that you had your best years in the beginning. In fact, your best years were, in the years going forward and even leading till today. And of course, you have still much on your radar and in your sights and on your bucket list. And even at 38 years old, right, today, you still are quite young, I suppose, when it comes to Ultra-Cyclist. I know we have many, including Marco Ballo, in their 60s and even some in their 70s. And so I can only imagine what on earth Christoph Strasser will be able to accomplish.
Yeah, when you compare Jure Robic, the big legend of our sport, I think he did his first race across America at his age 38.
Wow.
That I know. So yeah, I'm quite young, but I think the most important thing to be successful and to ride fast and strong is to do it a lot of years. You will improve from one year to the other. And patience is a very important thing in ultra cycling. Being patient with yourself and give yourself enough time to get better and stronger over the years.
I'm really glad that you shared that, Christoph. Those are really words of wisdom and really coming from a champion, because I think for many of us, it's very easy to just get so excited and so ambitious and just start ramping up the mileage to extremes. I mean, it's not very difficult to stay on the bike and just keep riding day in and day out. But as you said, it does take time and really being able to develop to avoid injuries, but also just to not burn out. Obviously, you've done a lot of ultra cycling for 18 years and you've been competing at a very high level for 14 years already. And so you've obviously unlocked some things that the rest of us can really take to heart to better our own careers in ultra cycling. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, other than having the patience, I think also what it takes to be successful, at least motivated perhaps, is to have a lot of bicycles. So how many bicycles do you own?
I know that you will ask this question because you ask this question to everybody.
Yes.
And I was counting them today, especially for
Oh,
you.
okay.
And at the moment, it's 5 bicycles, but it's always different because I have a great sponsor. You see it here, Specialized.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
get 2 bikes every year, 2 new ones. And
Wow.
yeah, some of the old ones are given away for charity reasons. Some of them were sold. So it always depends. Sometimes I have 3 or 4, sometimes I have 7 or 8. And sometimes I don't even know. So I always have to count them.
Oh, that's hilarious. Sometimes you don't even know. Yeah, you're just walking through your house and you find a bike here in this room and one in that room, one
Yeah,
sleeping next to you in bed.
but I have to admit that I'm not in love with my bicycles. They are just tools for me. Of course, I like them and I'm excited about bikes, but I don't take them to my bedroom. They are just in the basement. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, do you remember what your very first bicycle was, road bicycle was that you were competing in?
In my very first 24-hour race, I had a mountain bike with slick tires.
Oh, wow.
Because at that moment I didn't have any other bike.
Mm,
And then my very first was a present from my parents. It was from an Italian company. It was Casati. My first
mm,
bike was a Casati. And then a few years later, I got my first bike from a company. It was like a little bit of sponsoring, a little bit of payment.
mm.
So I got it for a cheaper price. It was from the Austrian company Simplon. And then from 2007 until today, I always got Specialized bikes.
Wow, fantastic. What was that first year when you had partial sponsorship?
It was 2006. It was
Oh,
the
okay.
year when I won my first 24-hour races and when I had the ambitions
Mm,
to do it professionally one day.
mm.
And when I figured out maybe I will do Race Across America in the future.
Yeah, no, excellent. So 2006, so it took about 4 years of real focus, but also patience. And then you finally landed your first partial sponsorship. Of course, since that time, you've done a lot since you made up your mind to stay focused and commit to competing in RAAM and many other things. And of course, you've come a long way. And, Specialized, you have been actually to their wind tunnel, right? In wind tunnel, WIN, wind tunnel in Morgan Hill, California, right?
Yes, it was 2014, 2 weeks before the start of Race Across America. I'm always there 2 weeks before the start to get used to the weather, to get used to the time shift. And in that year, it was arranged that I could spend one day in the wind tunnel to find out about aerodynamics, to improve some little things. Of course, I didn't really change my position because if you change your position on the bike, you must get used to it for a longer time, for maybe half a year or a whole year. But we changed some things from equipment, from the water bottle placement. I learned that you should never have an open jersey. And in my,
Oh.
my earlier years, my jersey was always opened. It was like waving in the wind because it's much cooler for your body,
Right, right.
but you use so much energy with bad aerodynamics. And from that day on, when I was in the wind tunnel, my jersey is always closed because there is so much difference, and you can spend thousands of dollars on your equipment, on your wheels, on your bike frame, and you will never improve that much than when just closing your jersey.
Wow. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that knowledge with us.
Zero. It doesn't cost $1. Just close your shirt.
Yeah, well, geez, Christoph, I must admit I'm very guilty of that, especially during the summertime.
Yeah, when I look at your picture in your backgrounds, the jersey is open there.
Uh-oh. Quick, cover it up, cover it up. We got to edit that out now. Yes, and of course, there in Monument Valley is depicted. It gets very hot there. But of course, you have ridden through there 9 times, having participated in Race Across America on 9 occasions. Of course, you are the only 6-time Race Across America champion. Now, one of your role models, Jure Robic, won that 5 times. And he, unfortunately, we lost him in 2010. And I'm sure you would have been competing a lot more with him since then. And he was a very high caliber, just like you were as well. Now, you did have 2 DNFs, which I would love to get into later on. And that's very telling. And for a champion like yourself, I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom there for you to share about that. And then, of course, you did get a second place in 2012, but I think that was so long ago. I don't think anybody remembers that one.
Yeah, but I do, because I don't like to be second place, of course, like any rider who wants to win a race. But
Right.
I learned the most lessons I learned in my life have been in the second place race and in the 2 DNFs. So winning is nice, and winning is, yeah, it's a great feeling, but there is not a lot of learnings in winning, because it gives you confidence that you did the right things, but there is no new lessons for you when you win. So sometimes it's really very important to fail or to lose, or just to be not successful. And then you also have to admit that you are the one who has to improve. It's not the fault of your crew or the fault of bad weather, or it's not bad luck. It's always yourself you have to improve. And that's very important to experience sometimes.
Yeah, well said, Christoph. No, I very much like that answer, because it is true. Somebody at your level who, are winning a lot, and perhaps in many events, simply because another competitor who might give you, or maybe a bit of a run for your money, may not be able to make it out there. So a lot of the times, it can be easy for you to just become complacent, and then it's not good for yourself, because you won't be able to improve. And you'll only be able to improve if there's actually some kind of motivation, some friction, some competition, some reasons for you to better yourself. Now, Christoph, I will say I'm sitting here in San Jose, California, which is not too far from Specialized headquarters in Morgan Hill, just I think about 10, 15 miles away. So that's very cool. Ride past it all the time, but have never ridden in the wind tunnel.
Yeah, and one funny story from the day at Specialized, in the break in the middle of the day. So when we went to lunch, all of the people from Specialized went for a lunch ride in the afternoon, and they asked me if I want to join them. And I thought that they are just going for a easy riding and for talking and chatting a little bit, but these guys were really fast, and I was in perfect shape. I was really on a good fitness level, because it was 2 weeks before the start of RAAM, and it was really tough for me to hold their wheels. And then I had one puncture in a wheel, so I had to stop for 2 minutes to fix the tire. And then I had a really, really hard time to get to them again, to come back to the group. And then I was really, really
Wow.
exhausted.
That is a funny story. Jeez.
People who are working at Specialized, they're not great engineers. They're really fit and really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about that company and the riders. And many of us who live around here are able to go riding with them. And of course, there's a lot of cycling that happens around here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And look forward to having you back here, and we'll be able to ride with you perhaps for 10 seconds in the very beginning. Now, Christoph, back to our sprint round of questions. I'm curious, which of your bicycles, maybe now or even in the past, has been your very favorite?
Yeah, it's the Schiff, Specialized Schiff. It's a time trial bike. In a few years ago, I had the Schiff model, which is built for triathlon. And now, since last year, I have the Schiff TT, which is built for road racing. There's a little difference. There are some regulations from the UCI concerning the frame and something. So yeah, I like riding in the flats. I like time trialing. So that's my favorite bike. And
that's this bicycle right here, right? Yeah, wow. And so of course this must be going through somewhere in California, Borrego Springs perhaps, or perhaps on the way into Arizona.
That picture was taken on the first day of RAAM. It's between time station 1 and 2. So when you enter the desert. And a short story to this bike, in 2013, I first used this time trial bike. And that was the year when I finished RAAM in under 8 days. And until that year, when you look at pictures from Yuri Robic, from the past RAAM winners, most of them used road bikes with the aero bar. Of course, I do as well, but in 2013, I was using the time trial bike for the first time. And I used it a lot. About half of the race, I was on the time trial bike. And that was a big reason for being able to be faster than 8 days.
Yeah, incredible.
When you watch pictures and other races today, I think nearly everybody, most of the racers always use a road bike and a TT bike.
Yes, it's very true how things have changed through the years. I mean, even from the very first race across America, not sure they were even wearing helmets. They were probably just wearing caps. And there are many advances, but of course, it does require a lot of human power to drive the thing forward. And of course, you've shown that. And here's a great picture from one of your lectures. And I see the Shiv here on the stage, getting the spotlight it deserves, I suppose, since you've put it through all kinds of conditions going across America. And for those who don't know, as you had mentioned, you did break that 8-day barrier. And the first time, it was 7 days, 22 hours and 11 minutes. But of course, you hold the record, which was set in 2014. And in that year, it was 7 days, 15 hours and 56 minutes.
Yeah, it was so crazy fast. 2014 was such an incredible year. There are so many things who must fit together to be able to be that fast. Of course, your fitness. You must be lucky to not have technical problems. You must have a perfect crew. Every stop must be reduced to some minutes, so you must not waste a single minute on the road out there. You need a bit luck with the weather, and 2014, just everything was perfect. Yeah, it was a little bit cooler on the first and second day, so it was not so hot than in other years. The wind, there was not so much headwind than in other years, and of course it was my best performance when you just look at the power output and on the power data. Yeah, everything was running perfect. And then your mind comes in when you, after 2 or 3 days, when you realize that you're just going so fast and that you're improving your own record, and maybe it's possible to do a historical performance, then you get even more motivation. Then you get into the flow even more, and then everything together.
Amazing. And so if I understand correctly, you are still the only person to ever have completed RAAM under 8 days, right?
Yes, it's true. I could achieve it 2 times. And I think today the route was changing 4 years ago. So today it's about, I'm not sure, I think 100 kilometers longer than in 2013, 14 and 15. So I think on the route today, it's maybe not possible, or it's very tough to get under 8 days again, because it's not only a few more miles and a few more feet of climbing, it's very complicated because the extra miles are added in Arizona. So you reach Flagstaff not in the afternoon, but in the middle of the night. You reach the Wolf Creek Pass not in the afternoon, but in the middle of the night. So it has some complicated.
Right. Many other factors to consider. As you mentioned, it's not just about riding, but all the conditions. And I mean, to go 3,000 miles across America, so many different climates, different altitudes, a variety of factors. And as you mentioned, 2014, you really just had all the stars align. So it will be interesting to see in the years to come if something like that can happen again, and to see what kind of performance yourself or someone else is able to achieve. but all very good. And of course, for those who are curious about the Race Across America, we do plan on having another session where we really dive deep into that. Of course, you've already shared a lot of nuggets and a lot of data from that. But of course, it's such a big race and there's so much involved with it, from the training to the racing, the strategy, the crew, the logistics, the nutrition. There's just so much that we can unpack that we decided, it'll make more sense to really dive deep into that. And so this is just give us a little taste. What bicycle computer do you use? Do you still use a Garmin, or have you tried a Wahoo or some other brand?
I'm still using Garmin and I like it very much. So I'm very satisfied with it. But I always use the very small one. So it's the 530 at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I do not like touch screen. I like the buttons.
Right.
Because you don't need to watch the display, you just can feel it. So when it's dark, when you look on the road and you just push the button, you can feel it with your fingers, and I like it very much. And I think as small and as lightweight as possible. So that's, I don't need navigation. I just need to track my training and my competition.
Yeah, that's true. It is a lot smaller. Do you have any idea about the aerodynamics versus one of the bigger touchscreen ones?
I don't know, but yeah, keep it as simple as possible, I think.
Yeah, I'd imagine riding it at your level and at your speed and trying to get as much aerodynamics and also just saving your energy. It's very important. Now, in other extreme sports like hiking through Antarctica or something, they'll typically cut the toothbrush to just have the bristles there. Do you use a shortened toothbrush when you're brushing your teeth on the road?
No, I do not. But I use my toothbrush during a race more often than in my ordinary day life, because it's a little bit of a trick to stay awake in the night. So when I'm very tired and when I have a hard time keeping my eyes open, I just brush my teeth and it helps me a little bit. So yeah, it can happen that I do it 5 times during the day in Race Across America.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that hidden insight. So now we know the key to sleep deprivation and staying awake. It's not coffee or caffeine. It's actually brushing your teeth.
Yeah. And another small trick for staying awake in toothbrushing is using very, very sharp mouthwash, and try to keep it in your mouth for 1 minute or 2 minutes. And then it's, the sharpness makes your eyes, you start to cry maybe, because there are some tears coming down because it's so sharp.
Okay.
That helps.
That's really funny. So you use the mouthwash to not only freshen your breath and keep you smelling good for all your fans out there, but also to keep you awake. So that's a very good trick. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so I'd imagine you probably have the freshest breath at the finish line of the Race Across America compared to everyone else.
Yeah, maybe we did not compare it with other riders, but maybe.
That's really funny. Thanks for sharing that. That really is a funny bit of information. But I suppose, as we've kind of discussed, all these little things, they really do make a big deal when you're going to the extremes, and you really need to try every option that is out there. Now, talking about details, Christoph, generally, what size tire do you prefer riding with? And is there a certain tire pressure that you like having?
Well, the size tire obviously changed over the years, so they get wider over the time. And at the moment, I use 26 millimeters tires, and I really like them. I use the turbo cotton tires from Specialized, and the pressure is about 7 to 8 bars. And I have to admit, I'm not completely sure. I'm not that expert in pressure.
Right. So 7 to 8 bars for us here in the US. So that's about 100 to about 115, say, PSI. That's good to know.
Yeah, I just use the number of air pressure which is printed on the tire.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good to know. Now, Christoph, I imagine obviously that you do train with power and heart rate. And I'm sure on occasion you also are taking a regular functional threshold power test.
Yes, of course, of course. I think it's
Yeah.
very important, and that was a big game changer in my training. I'm using Power Meter from Power to Max company since 10 years, and it really gives you a very good feeling of pacing during the race, and of course when you do training sessions, training rides. And one of the big benefits is also that you can really make it a very accurate documentation of what you're training, and gives you a lot of numbers like the training stress score and the intensity factor. Yeah, it's I could not imagine training and racing without a power meter anymore.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's great to have all this technology these days. But it's one thing to have the technology and another thing to actually track it as meticulously as you do, even with the Race Across America, and being able to analyze that and look back to see how you can make improvements and if you are going according to plan. When did you start using a coach for your training?
That was one of the very big lessons from my first Race Across America DNF, because before that I was training just with my own idea and my own wisdom. And I was training too much because in my early years before my first Race Across America, I did training weeks with 40 hours, 42 hours every week. A lot of endurance riding, but very few times I got into the red zone. I did not really do intensive intervals, and it was just too much training volume. I think when I look back, it was good because when you're young and you do a lot of riding, your body gets used to that, to the high mileage, but you will not get faster and you will not really improve yourself. And then after my DNF, I knew that I need a professional coach to improve, to get better. And because the thing is, when you train too much, you do not have enough time to recover. Your immune system gets weak. I was ill sometimes. I got sick sometimes. And since I have a trainer and a coach, I'm very healthy. I have enough time to recover. We reduced the training volume to about 25 to 35 hours per week. Maybe there are some weeks with 38, 39 hours, but in the most weeks, it's about 25 to 30 hours. So the training got more intensive, more high intensity intervals, and less training volume.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It is interesting to see how even yourself, obviously you had your humble beginnings, you had that DNF, but you didn't stop there and you didn't just continue with brute force, but you were, working hard, but also working smart at that point. And it's good to hear that from obviously the champion himself. Now, we had a recent episode with one of your good friends and competitors, Marco Ballo, with actually Jure Robic's son, Nel Jure Robic. And of course, Marco, coming from a professional road racing background prior to becoming an ultra cyclist, he was very much emphasizing to Null that, it is important to stay on the shorter end and work on your speed early on. But I like your answer when you said that it was good for you in your early years to get a lot of those miles. Now, it can happen many ways to learn these lessons, but it is one way to get a lot of miles, which translates to experience and also just mental strength that you're building through just sitting there doing so many miles. But of course, as you're saying, the difference between, say, just an ultra cyclist and an ultra cycling champion is being able to be smart and also train hard and also go for that higher intensity. So I'm very curious, back in the days prior to having a coach and having that formal training and assistance, what was the longest training rides that you would do in kilometers compared to what your longest one would be today?
In these days, I did one 12-hour session each month and a 10-hour training session each week. So I never really counted distance. I always counted training hours. So I think it would be 350 to 400 Ks in 12-hour session. but I'm not sure because in the winter time, when I do most of my training, the days it gets dark very soon. So I was like riding for 6 hours on the road and then coming home, moving to the indoor trainer and adding 6 more hours. So the distance, I cannot really tell you the distance. I always do track my training in hours, how many hours in which power zone, and then just do a calculation to get a number of mileage per year. But the mileage per year is only a calculation when you take the training time and multiply it with about 30 k's per hour average speed.
That's very interesting. I'd love to learn more about that. From the very beginning, were you always of that mindset that you wanted to train just by time in certain zones? Or in your earlier years, when you first started, were you training according to distance?
I always did it in hours because the distance doesn't really tell you a lot, because if you go a lot of uphill, downhill, the distance is completely different than when you go flat. And you also have to consider the winds and the temperatures, how much clothing you wear. So yeah, I think it's much more accurate to track the training hours. And comparing my training today to my earlier years, today I just do several sessions, about 7 or 8 hours maximum, and only for 3 or 4 times a year. And because I have done so many long distance races and so many 24-hour challenges, my body is used to that endurance stuff. So I do more intensity and less volume than I did in my early years.
Interesting. So it seems like perhaps then in your early years, or perhaps say the first half of your career, is really focused on that endurance aspect. But it seems like now that you have such a huge base of endurance, both physically and mentally, that you're able to concentrate more now on speed, which explains why you've been able to achieve the results that you have been able to in recent years as well. And I did want to take this moment just to pause for a second. First, just to quickly show a couple photos of your pain cave there at home here on the trainer. And of course, you're putting a lot of miles there, and I want to get into more of that here shortly. And then, of course, there's some of your many bikes that you've had to count. I'm really curious to know, in the early years when you were riding, say it's about 250 miles. So you said about 350, 400 kilometers, and now you're doing much less of that. What would you say is some of the biggest things that you learned from riding those longer miles in the earlier days?
When you ride long training rides, more than 6 or 7 hours, you will experience a lot of things which are important for your racing. You will find out how your body reacts, if you have pain, if you have saddle sores, if you have problems in your neck or something. You can make some tests with your nutrition. That's all very important. You will get more experienced by doing very long rides, but you will not get faster. You will get faster and stronger when you do high intensity and shorter rides. So I think the combination is really important. And what Marco said, that in younger years it would be better to work on your speed and your it's true. I think it's true. But on the other side, I have to say that there is no one right way to train. So it's very individual, which can work for one person, maybe very wrong for the other person. And that's why a personal coach is really important, because he can find out about what you need and what will improve your performance.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I was curious to know, because in that session with Marco and Nal, Marco was thinking, perhaps Christoph, if he could go back, maybe he wouldn't want to start as a road racer on the shorter distances. And so it's nice to have that answer from you. And I think it is a good answer, because it is really, in this day and age, with all the data and knowing that people, both nutritionally, but also, in training, it's very much personalized these days, depending on your body, and both also on your mental state as well. And so it is true that there's a lot to learn from actually doing the longer distances. Now, Marco was saying, these days he never trains a 24-hour anymore other than the races. And it sounds like you also do not do that. Of course, you have all that experience, you've locked it in, and you've put in all the training and also all the competition. So you know what to expect, and you've kind of dialed in your strategy. But now getting back to some of those other details, which are kind of personalized for each individual, I have a few questions related to nutrition. First one, fun one, is what is your personal favorite ride snack? Like, what do you like eating, whether it's training or perhaps even racing? Although I think in racing, you tend to be quite regimented and very disciplined with that. So perhaps just when you're training there at home.
When I do a training ride, the best thing, it's not the healthiest thing, but the best thing is, in German, we call it Topfengolatschen. And this is like a small piece of cake with some milk cream in it and some raisins in it and a little bit of sugar on it. So I really like that. You can buy these in supermarkets or in gas stations along the way. And if I'm very hungry and if I'm in danger to my performance goes down and I need to add some calories and sugar, then I buy one of these good things.
How many of those would you say you would eat? Say you're out on a ride and you're coming home, and you have another 2 hours to go, and you're like, oh, I didn't quite plan that right. Maybe I went extra or whatever the case may be. How many of those cakes could you eat?
2 or 3 maybe, but I don't tell my coach because he's not doesn't like very much when I do these cakes. But yeah, I like them.
Now, what do you say? You're just at home and just hanging out with friends, or and then you're having those cakes or something else. What do you like drinking with it? Are you a coffee drinker, tea drinker, or just something else?
Yeah, in the meantime, I really like espresso coffee, and it's very tough because before a big race, I stop drinking coffee a few weeks before, because otherwise, if you drink coffee all the time, there is no effect on caffeine, doesn't affect you anymore. So it's important to reduce your caffeine intake a few days before the start of the race to have the effect when you need it. And the weeks before start of RAAM with no coffee at all, it becomes harder each year.
Oh yeah, I could imagine, especially when you really enjoy it. And I will say, just like your training has increased through the years, my caffeine consumption has increased. I'm still hoping it'll help my performance, but don't have the data yet on that.
During the race, my favorite snack is really Ensure, the liquid nutrition. And the best thing is dark chocolate, because that's one of the flavors which is not available in Europe and in Austria. It's only available in the US. So
interesting.
Here we have vanilla and milk chocolate, but no dark chocolate. So dark chocolate is something very special, and I really enjoy that during RAAM.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm surprised out there in Europe you don't have a Swiss chocolate flavor.
Yeah, maybe something for the future.
Yeah, and of course we have this photo here, very fun one, with many of your crew members having a nice meal. And of course, there is your favorite snack of choice for your rides. All your Insurers. I see some vanilla ones there. Those must be the dark chocolate ones down there.
Yeah.
Now, Christoph, along the lines of food, after a big, hard effort, a training ride, or even perhaps one of the events, what is your favorite post-ride meal? Whether you could eat it right after or perhaps the day after, what is something that you really look forward to eating?
I really like protein shakes. I always put some banana and some wild berries or strawberries into it and mix it up, so it really tastes good. It's not only good for your recovery, but also tasting very well. And what I really enjoy is all kinds of salad. I know salad is not giving you a lot of calories, but you can add like tuna, you can add nuts, you can add different kind of vegetables, and it's really healthy stuff, and I also like the taste of it. And we have some salad in our garden, so it's like something from the own garden, not from the supermarket, and I really liked it very much.
Oh, interesting. Oh, very cool. So in your off season or perhaps even in season, you're cross training with farming and gardening, it sounds like.
Yeah, sometimes also in the spring times, because you
Yeah.
have to put all the plants there in spring, and it adds a few muscles maybe to my upper body, because my upper body is not very strong.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And all the squatting as well, if you have to pull weeds or, do something on the ground, it's a very good workout. Now, Christoph, I'm wondering, do you prefer climbs, descents, rollers, or the flats?
I definitely prefer flats. I really like them. Yeah, rollers can be very tough,
Mm,
and yeah, going uphill is always tough, of course, depending on the speed you do. And downhill can be funny, but it also can be a little bit dangerous. And yeah, the flat is always good, because in the flats you get what you give. If you push
yeah.
hard, you run strong, and yeah, flat racing is my favorite.
Oh, very true. And you're very good at it and look good doing it on your Shiv TT bike. Now, going downhill, I mean, I'd imagine to be fast, obviously, in general, and going across America, there's many descents you'll have to do. So you have to be somewhat comfortable and go at a pretty good speed. But I'm just curious, do you know what your maximum speed going down a hill has ever been?
Yeah, it was. I've listened to your interviews with other riders,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not so crazy fast downhill. My technique is not bad, because in
Mm,
Austria you have a lot of winding roads downhill. It's really uh, you cannot compare it to the mountain passes in USA, because
mm,
the Rocky Mountains, a lot of straight uphill and straight downhill. In
mm.
Austria, it's really tricky, but my maximum speed was, I think, 105 k's per hour. But
Wow.
afterwards, I thought to myself, I don't do it again, because it might be funny for a second, but you don't want to crash in that moment.
No, that's so true. I mean, 105 kilometers per hour, that's over 65 miles per hour, which is the speed limit here in California on the freeways. So that is a very fast speed. And as you mentioned, I mean, even just one thing goes wrong or there's too big of a rock in the road or some dirt, it could be very detrimental. But of course, you do have to be fast on the downhills to gain some speed going across America or one of the other ultra events. So it's nice to hear that, of course, you are well-rounded, but very much enjoy the flats. How about when it comes to the season and time of year that you enjoy riding? Do you enjoy riding during the fall, the winter, the spring, or the summertime?
The, the summertime is the worst time of the year, because it's just too hot. I do not like it. And
Ah,
I
interesting.
guess I would be much faster in Race Across America if it was in spring. And yeah, spring is my favorite time of the year.
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, good to know. So you really don't like the heat. Well, of course, you do make it through every time when you're doing a RAAM going through the desert, and you've been there in so many years and you've seen very extreme heats. Now, are you glad that you ride as fast as you do so you can get through there faster? Or would you say riding at the intensity that you do is actually more difficult with the heat?
I think I can handle the heat, but it's really a big problem. You can clearly see if temperature goes up, your performance goes down, and when a few hours later, when it's getting night and getting cooler, temperature goes down and performance goes up again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's you must find a way to get through the desert without destroying yourself. But I could be much faster if it was in ordinary temperatures, like 25 degrees Celsius or something. I could push like 100 watts more than when it's 45 degrees Celsius.
Interesting. So, do you think at some point in your life, perhaps when you're in your older years, do you think you would ever want to try to do the RAAM route in a different season?
Maybe, but then the other problem is, you have the Rocky Mountains if you do it in February, March, I think it's really cold and you cannot get over there. So maybe it would be best to go through the desert in spring and then over the Rockies in the summer, and then reaching Annapolis in fall and take a lot of time and enjoy the ride. Would be maybe something for the future.
Yeah, that would be. Geez, since you ride so fast through there, and of course, with the Race Across America, you're going through morning and night. So a lot of the country really actually you haven't really seen for yourself. So that definitely sounds like you'll have to come out for a more leisure pace. Now, we have been talking a lot about the Race Across America, and I wanted to show folks just the general route here across America. Of course, we start in Southern California here in Oceanside, and it cuts through. We were just talking about the desert over here. You go through there, skirt just past Utah into Colorado and the Rocky Mountains, of course. And those are the highest elevations. Although when you look at the elevation chart, it makes it look like at the very end here at the Appalachians, it looks like there's probably just rolling hills there. But in fact, there very much are some mountain passes there as well. And of course, you're very familiar with this route. You've done it so many times. And from the Race Across America website, I did want to show, they do have a variety of records listed on the site for folks to check out if they're curious. In the solo men division, there's your name, Christoph, 2014 with your 7 days, 15 hours, 56 minutes record. That was 3,020 miles that year. And then, of course, the under 50 and the overall timed record. That first one is the speed record, and we see other familiar names here, including Marco Ballo here. Of course, well done in all of your Race Across America victories. Now, when it comes to training, Christoph, do you prefer training in the morning, afternoon, or evening?
As late as possible. I do not like mornings at all. So when I know I have a 6-hour training session, I have to begin in the middle of the day to finish in the later afternoon or in the evening. And if it's just a 2-hour session, I begin in the later afternoon. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I would have thought that somebody like you would love training super early in the morning, but in fact, it's not the case.
Definitely. I do not like to get up early. I really enjoy spending long evenings when I have to do some work on the computer, preparing my bikes or anything. I always do it in the afternoon, in the evening, or in the night. And I like to stay in bed a little bit longer in the morning. Yeah. But also, I never did one single training ride in the night. Never. When I have to train, when it's dark, because there is some problems with my schedule, or I have to do other things during the day, and do not have the time to train during the day, I do it indoor. But I do not like riding outdoor in the night because it's just dangerous. You can crash, or a driver maybe does not see you. It's just a risk. So I just did one single training ride in my whole life when it was dark, and it was to get used to my bicycle lighting, just to make a test of my front lights. Yeah. But no training in the night.
That's very interesting. So you enjoy riding later in the day. So you're getting almost a full day, half day of life in before that. And I'm sure that must make you, a little more tired, of course, as you go through the day. And so for you, you don't mind that? Do you think that helps with your training at all? Or do you think it is not as good for your training? And perhaps if you did it earlier, you would feel fresher?
No, when I do it earlier, I feel tired because I do not like morning. Yeah. No, but it was just for fun. I talked to my coach, and he said it doesn't matter. Everyone is different in that kind of thing, and it doesn't really make a big difference. And I have to say, when I do tough intervals and really high intensity training in the morning, I cannot do it. I do not have enough power in the morning, and in the afternoon I feel much better with high intensity trainings.
So it's very interesting, but I'm curious, how does that translate to your multi-day ultra cycling events like RAAM? Do you feel the same performance levels throughout the whole 24-hour period each day, where you feel stronger in later in the day, in the afternoons and evenings, than you do in the mornings?
When I compare to other riders, I think that I'm doing my sleep breaks in the night later than the other ones, because I'm not getting tired at midnight. I'm not getting tired at 2 in the morning. I'm really getting tired at 3 or 4 a.m. And then I have one of my toughest times is always like 5, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. And I really get strong in afternoon and evening. But, when you do a race, there is like a switch in your head, and you do not really think about that anymore, because if there is another rider close to you, you get faster, you get more excited. If you're out there in the front alone, it's tough to get the motivation. So it very much depends on your crew, how they are able to talk to you, to motivate you, to keep you in a high spirit. But yeah, it's not so important what time of the day it is.
Yeah, very interesting. So I think from everything that we've already discussed so far, it seems like perhaps, it's common that people would think that in order to accomplish things as you have accomplished, you have to be very strict in the sense of, there's a certain box that you have to put yourself in, and there can only be done one way or another way. Whereas you're really saying that your story and your experiences, that there are many ways to accomplish it, and it really depends on yourself. So not just being able to know yourself, but also having a coach that can give you that knowledge and coach you along and guide you for how you are personally. It makes a big difference. And I think that should be very encouraging to folks watching at home, knowing that no matter where you are in your own journey and your own situation, physically, mentally, whatever the case may be, that it is possible for you also to increase your own performance and to do very well, and perhaps even to break free from this mold that we may think we have to put ourselves in, to always have to ride, very through the night, when it's perhaps more dangerous, or to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day in order to be a successful ultra endurance athlete. So I think your story is very inspiring in that sense, and I think it gives a lot of encouragement for myself, and I think probably for many of the viewers as well. So thank you for sharing so candidly all of your experience. Now, with all that experience that you have, I really want to know, what do you think? Does ultra cycling require more physical or mental training and fortitude?
That's a very good question, and I think just on that question we could talk for hours. But a lot of riders think, and in their reality and in their situation, it may be true, of course, that the mental aspect is more important, or maybe much more important than the physical aspect. But I have a very clear idea of that. Your mind tells you why you do it, and your mind tells you if you go on, but your body and your fitness tells you how fast you go on. So your mind does not make you faster, but your mind can really make you slower. Your mind can cause problems. You can have negative thinking. You can lose your motivation. You can feel frustration and everything. Maybe you ask yourself, why am I doing that? What's the reason for doing this? These are all very big problems. And also in the everyday training, you need to know, what is your goal? Is there a positive aspect if I reach my goal for the future? Is there a deeper sense in reaching my goal? These are very important questions. But in the race, I found out over the years that the physical fitness and your endurance is the most important thing if you want to go for a win. If you want to go for finishing a big race, maybe your mental aspect is more important. But if you want to go for the first place, you need an excellent fitness. And the problem is mental training and setting your focus can be achieved in a few sessions when you have a mental coach or a psychologist or just people to talk, you can talk to. your focus can be set in a few hours if you know why you're doing this. But your physical fitness takes years and many of thousands of hours of training. So there is no shortcut to get that fitness you need if you want to go for a win.
That's an interesting perspective.
When you look back on the many decades of Race Across America winners, the guys who won the race, they have always been great cyclists. Always. When you look at Wolfgang Fasching from Austria, he was a road racer in his early years. When you look at Juri Robic, he was a road racer in his early years. He won championships in road racing in Slovenia. When you look at Severin Zotter from Austria 2015, I know him. He's a good friend of mine. He's a great cyclist. And every year the winner was the best cyclist and not a average cyclist with a strong mind, but he was always a great cyclist who also is very good in other distance, in shorter distance, in time trials, in other racings.
That's a very interesting perspective. But again, as you said, if you want to win, then it is important, that physical aspect, that training, that intensity, being a great cyclist. But really, if you just want to finish the Race Across America or something else like that, the mental aspect definitely comes into play, because it's very easy, especially with lack of experience, or if you're a rookie in RAAM, to doubt yourself and to discourage yourself. But it's interesting that you say that you could actually train your mind very quickly. Whereas again, you have to be very patient with the physical development and adaptations that it takes to become a better cyclist, and perhaps even to win something, whether that's an overall victory or an age category perhaps, or even to set some world record. And it's interesting that you mentioned Severin Zotter in the 2015 RAAM, because actually that's the year that I was participating in the Race Across America. And I don't think you remember, but there in Oceanside before the start, this was during the vehicle inspections, we were doing the inspection about the same time of our vehicles and our bikes and all that. And I saw you and your whole entourage rolling into the parking lot, and I knew I had to grab a photograph. That's me with you there. Of course, both of us looking very happy and fresh before the starting line. But it was great to see you, of course, all the way in California. And that was a very hot year. And in fact, going back to what we were discussing earlier, you've participated in RAAM on 9 occasions, but have DNF on 2 occasions. 2015 was actually one of them. Just tell me briefly about that. What had happened?
Yeah, 2015 was special in many ways. To your last question, if it's body or mind, which is more important, I can tell you from my 2015 experience, as long as your body is in a good condition, you will not get mental problems. Mental problems begin when your body begins to break down. So the better your fitness is, the less work you have to do with your mind. That's another big factor, and that was something which came into play in 2015. I was a little bit, maybe not 100% rested, because 2.5 months before, I was doing 24-hour record. It was successful. It was a big story. I was really happy, and I really took a few weeks to recover. So I didn't train as much before RAAM as I did in the years before, because of the 24-hour record. And then in the race, it was really, really hot. It was, I think, the hottest year I ever have been there in the first 2 days in the desert. And I got problems with my fluid intake, with drinking. And I became, I was swelling, my face was popping up, my legs, my arms, there was water retention in my body. And that led to water edema in my whole body. And in the Rocky Mountains, it began that water in my lung was there. And that's, if that happens, you have a big problem. And then it's going very fast. After a few hours, you can get your lungs can get completely ill, and finally it was pneumonia. But one of the reasons, of course, was because there was so much water in my body and also in my lungs. Yeah, and the problem is, we found out after that if you drink too much, a lot of people are always afraid of dehydration, and you need to drink and drink. And when it's getting hotter, you need to drink even more. But not true if you do a multi-day ride, because it can happen that you drink too much. And when you drink too much, and also just plain water, which is not a good idea, because you always have to add electrolytes and salt. If you drink plain water and too much liters of intake, water will be in your body soon, and then problems begin.
Yeah.
It was a very important lecture, because for my future Race Across America participations, we found out that we have to take care about this problem, not drinking more than maximum about 1 liter per hour. 700 milliliters is better. And this is very tough in the desert, because I always have the feeling I'm thirsty. I need to drink more. I have a sore throat, and it's really uncomfortable. But that's the way that I stay healthy, and I do not get the water problems in my body anymore. So that was a very big learning. And the other thing in 2015 was that Severin Zotter was just such a fast and strong and great rider, and I know him so good and so well, and he's really a good friend. And I knew that he was not overpacing himself in the first 2 days. I knew that he's able to keep that speed until the finish line. So I got some mental problems, because I was behind him, and I knew if I want to catch him, I have to increase my performance. But on the same time, I suffered from the heat and from the water problems.
Wow.
So maybe I should have slowed myself down much more. But when I slow down, I know that I'm not able to catch him. So I was riding too fast, because when you get sick doing RAAM, you have to slow down, try to recover, and maybe a few days later you can try to increase your speed again. But it was like a lot of things coming together in that race.
Wow.
But now when I look back, it was one of the most important things to ever learn for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thanks for sharing all those lessons with us. Big revelations, and I can't believe that now you have taken it upon yourself as part of the strategy to limit what you do drink, even through the desert, even to the point where you do feel thirsty and you're even getting a sore throat. I mean, that isn't intuitive, I think. I think for most of us, when we hear that, it sounds counterintuitive, and nobody would ever just do that unless they had done the research, have the data, have the experience in order to execute that in the Race Across America. So definitely something that people would want to try out in their training ahead of time, so they can avoid those kinds of issues as well. I know that year was very hot, even for myself. And of course, in this image back here, we're in Monument Valley, so we're through a lot of that. But I remember going through Arizona, my feet were swelling quite a bit as well. And I think for a similar reason as well, because it was just so hot that I was feeling the need to drink a lot more than probably I needed. So very good words of wisdom there. Thanks for sharing that. And
maybe let me just add, please, that this is also a very sensitive topic. Not every person, not every racer has the same problems. Some of them can just drink as much as they want, and they will never get these problems. And some other riders will get these problems. So it's drinking too little is of course a big problem, but it's really important to have a sports or a coach who can help you on that topic.
Yeah, it's very true. And as you mentioned, so it is important to do that experimentation with a professional and somebody that can guide you and make sense of the data and make sense of what you're experiencing. And, to not take it lightly, because of course, even in that year, it could be life-threatening, or at least it could do some damage to you, which perhaps will stay with you for a very long time. So of course, it does take the champion kind of mindset to also know when to throw in the towel, to know when to slow down, as you mentioned, and not to keep going faster and faster. I did want to show some photos first. As you mentioned, in 2015, you were setting the outdoor road record. That was in Berlin, Germany. Of course, looking very fast. And that looks like a different Shiv bike that you were on that year, of course.
Yeah, it was the airport Berlin Tempelhof, which is closed since many years, but it's a park for people to walk or people to run and ride their bikes. And we got the permission to do the ride there, and it was just a great atmosphere, complete flat course. And we did a lot of testing on aerodynamics, but it was definitely not the perfect ride because it was cold, it was windy. I had to put on a jacket, and in the night it was nearly freezing. It was really tough and cold. It was in March, and I knew that someday that record is gonna be broken, and meanwhile it happened.
Yeah, you're right. And just recently, we interviewed the Slovenian ultra rider Stanko Verstovšek, who just recently broke the record, which you held, though, for a very long time. For 5 years, you held the record. Just shy of the 900 kilometer mark, you rode 896 kilometers that year. And of course, others have tried to beat that since. It was a very great performance. But as you said, there were very challenging conditions that year. Now, when it comes to records, love that photo, great celebration. When it comes to records, you're not done yet. Tell us about what you plan on doing in 2021, next year, which in fact, it was something that you wanted to do this year if it were not for the pandemic and the travel restrictions.
Yeah, one of my big goals, I mean, not from the beginning of my cycling, but after I did some Race Across America wins, of course, I was thinking of Yuri Robic 5 RAAM wins. And when I finally had 6th RAAM win, I decided to not do RAAM in the next year, but to find a new goal. And my new goal was to try to achieve 1,000 Ks in 20 hours. And I know that it cannot be done on an ordinary road track here in Europe, but you need high altitude with lower RD and better aerodynamics. So my plan is to do it in Colorado, on a race track in Colorado. And 2020 is not possible because of travel restrictions, but I hope that 2021, so next year, will be better and that I can travel to Colorado and in September. So this September 2021 is the date of the record attempt.
So we wish you all the best with that, of course, and we can't wait to follow that journey. It'll be very exciting to see you, well, really racing with yourself and racing against the clock in 2021. And we know that you'll be able to accomplish that. Now, Christoph, I do have some other questions here from folks in the ultra cycling family that we've asked on Facebook. Race Across America asks, which past RAAM winner do you most wish you could go head to head with, and why?
Yeah, it is definitely Yuri Robic, of course. I mean, I have done some races together with him. Of course, he was always the winner, and I was, but it was when I was really young and I did not experience and the fitness level from today. But I think it would be so interesting because I'm looking such up to him. And when you look at his kind of racing, he was always in the head-to-head competition. He was always the fastest one. But when he had a lead, he slowed down a little bit, and he had a few hours of a gap to his contenders, and then he didn't push as hard anymore as in the beginning. And I think I'm different. I'm not a so great cyclist than he was. Guys are one day behind me. I still push as much as possible, and yeah, it would be so interesting to ride against him. But
it would be. And of course, you sent a variety of photos with him, and it's amazing just to see Well, three of you here with Marco Ballo together in a photograph. And wow, I can't believe how young you look there with them. Here's some more. Of course, you guys shared many podiums together in those years.
In the meantime, the hairstyle is.
Yeah, definitely.
Meantime, I had hairstyle like when I was young. But yeah, that's what you see is race Slovenia from 2007. It was my first podium finish, big race, and I was so proud to be on the podium with Ure Marco. I felt like the biggest winner of all time. I was racing there 4 years of race around Slovenia. Jurovic was the winner. And I got third and second a few times, and finally I could win this race, and it was always a very special race for me. It is something like the heritage of Jurovic, and people in Slovenia are so crazy about ultra cycling. They really like the sport. There is such a good atmosphere, and yeah, in the meantime, the race, which is very sad, but in these years it was I think the best race in the world, because all the best racers from Europe have been there. And in Race Across America, they have not been all of the top racers because it's expensive. It's very hard to get there with a crew, with the budget. But in Race Around Slovenia, all the strong guys have been there.
That's very interesting. Now, you were talking about Race Around Slovenia, but also here I have photos from Race Around Austria, which I'd love to show, especially because you were talking about, all the fanfare and all the participation from the locals who come out to watch. Now, this here is at the finish line. I can't help but notice that there are just hundreds of people out there in attendance. Tell me about what's going on here. And is this common here in Austria and perhaps even in Slovenia?
There are really great events managers here in the Race Around Austria, especially. There is a big festival in the city where the start and the finish is. And that's, of course, a big difference to Race Across America, because you have start on the west coast and the finish on the coast. And in Race Around Austria, you one lap and you have start finishing place. And there is a multi-day festival with music, with some other events, and a lot of people are coming there for different reasons. So not everybody just comes because of the race, but because of the whole festival. The organizers try to put the starting times of different riders in different categories in such a time slot that most of the people finish the race on one day. So in that one day, there is coming all of the finishers from all different distances and age categories. So there is really a lot of party business going on, and you can celebrate in the finish line. There are thousands of people, and it's just incredibly great. It's really the best finish I've ever experienced, and that's one of the great things about Race Around Austria. Of course, the beautiful mountains. It's very tough, I think, from the physical aspects, from the steep climbings and the lot of climbing you have to do, and also different weather. I mean, it's in the desert, but you can experience snow, rain, thunderstorm, everything. It's the same physical toughness as Race Across America, but of course it's not so demanding your mind, because you will not experience that level of sleep deprivation and some other problems will not happen to you, because it's just 4 days and not 8 days.
Very interesting. And along those lines, Christoph, Jure Robic's son Nel, he also had a question along those lines, and he's wondering, what do you define as a really tough race? He's wondering, is it the distance that does it, or is it just perhaps the psychological impact that a certain race might have?
I think it's the intensity and the speed you do the race. A 1 hour time trial can be so tough, and it can be, you can suffer so much on our time trialing if you do it on an all-out performance. And a 24-hour race can be easy if you just go in a medium speed. So I think it doesn't really depend on the distance, but just on how hard you push.
Yeah, that's good to know. And in fact, you have done a number of 24-hour records, including the one on the indoor velodrome. And from your own words, that was one of the toughest rides that you've ever done, right?
It wasn't one of the rides, it was the toughest ride at all. It was really not fun at all. When you imagine, there are some hours full of pain, full of problems, full of negative thoughts, and really suffer. But then there are hours which are beautiful. You have great landscape, you have a great spirit, you can listen to music, you can talk to your crew. It's just great. And in the velodrome, there is no hour which is great. There is only suffering all the time, because I was doing, I think, 3,700 laps. One lap is 250 meters long. So you go through one curve, like on this picture, for 7 seconds. Then you have 4 seconds straight, and then the next curve for 7 seconds. So I think 16 hours you're going in a curve, and you have to be concentrated not to crash. Because if you go too much to the inside, you will crash. If you go much to the outside, you will not hold the line. If you are slowing down, you will also crash. You cannot get out of the saddle. You have the curves are very steep, so there is a pressure on your upper body, on your you will get sad. It's really tough. You have problems with eating and drinking because you're in that aero position all the time. You can never relax your upper body. And my longest training ride on the track was 6 hours. 6 hours was good. I felt comfortable. I did 250 pace in 6 hours. It was not really hard. I was thinking I could do it 4 times in a row. 4 times, 6 hours, 250 Ks each time. It will be 1,000 kg at the end. But it did not work out. I did suffer so much during the attempt.
Jeez. That's
And
amazing.
then you have that aero helmet, which your ears are closed, and had the Terrano system, the communication system, but it didn't really work because the people who were watching, they had their mobile phones, and there were some difficulties with the signal of my Terrano system. So I didn't really hear what's going on. I was not able to talk to my crew. And you're like in a cage. You cannot talk to anybody. You don't hear what's going on. You're just in your own bubble, and you are feeling pain all the time. And I'm really proud that I was able to keep on going for 24 hours, even if my performance was going down. In the first moment, I was not so happy because I thought to myself, I wanted to do 1,000 Ks. I only did 941. My performance was not so high as I was hoping for. But today, 3 guys tried to beat the record, and all of them did not finish. They had to stop. One of them crashed. It did not work out. And now, a few years later, I'm really proud and happy that I was able to push it through. And one of the great moments, of course, was that Marco Ballo was there. He was record holder before me, and he was as an official here. So he was looking if everything is okay, and the rules and everything. And then he was gave me congratulations after I achieved it. It was a great moment of sportsmanship, and I was happy to share it with him.
Yes, and very well deserved. Christoph, here's a wonderful photo of you receiving a nice framed memory for that world record setting. And it's so nice. I see Irma, Marco Ballo's wife there actually. And
Yeah,
I think what you described with the, kind of being in that dark cave, not being able to hear, and all these things that you had to cope with, it sounds very much like perhaps what a lot of ultra cycling is, not that intensity, but really about that level of focus and being able to, even in a situation like that, being able to find the reasons to keep going and pushing, and that mental strength, and also having that physical strength to keep you going, as you were talking about earlier. And so it's very impressive and great to hear that story from you, because now we can all really appreciate what that record meant. Because I think it's very easy for us to look at you, Christoph, in so many years and so many achievements, and just to think, wow, you look really cool on all those nice bikes, all those nice kits, and you're looking so fast, and man, it must be just so easy for you. But the truth is, the challenges that you set for yourself each year are just getting increasingly more difficult as you get faster and stronger, training at those intensities with your coach. And so really every achievement you accomplish is a big feat. And so I do want to congratulate you on that. And, we all cheer you on and send tailwinds your way to be able to keep going. Now, thanks for answering those questions. Couple more short ones here. And of course, we will ask many more in our next session with you. And we look forward to that. And we thank everybody for sending in their own questions. I think there were two similar ones from two people, Tony Keene and Adam Ashwell. They were both asking about Insurer. Now, of course, when it comes to nutrition, everybody's kind of different. Some people are very sensitive in their stomachs, maybe when it's hot, in different scenarios, and they're not able to keep the food down. And so Adam Ashwell, of course, you met him in Fort Scott, Kansas, and he has since taken a lot of inspiration from you. He is now riding a lot himself, and we had an episode with him. He very much, looks up to you, Christoph, and I'm sure he's very excited to listen to this episode with you. He's wondering, how do you even keep Insurer down without getting sick? He tried it. Now, he made the mistake of trying it on a race, first time, never having used it. And he, of course, was throwing up a lot after that. And then, of course, Tony Keene is asking, what is your Insurer strategy for a race? You were kind of touching on it earlier when it comes to overall hydration. Is it the same throughout? You're doing a certain amount, you're limiting that, or do you adjust the amount of calories you're intaking as you go along through something like RAAM?
To Adam's question, of course, I remember him. He's there every year, and they have their time station in Fort Scott. And one year he was even riding with me for a few miles, I think, and he could not follow him. And the nutrition thing is, I always change my nutrition 3 days before the race. So I stop eating solid food and I drink the nutrition, the liquid nutrition, the Insurer, 3 days before the start of the race, so that my body and my digestive system can adapt to it. And that was what you saw on the picture with my crew. My crew had steak and potatoes, and they had a great dinner. And I was drinking my Insurer. It was the day before the start.
Wow.
Yes, that picture. Of course, that's a funny picture, but I think that's important. If you decide that you want to do it on liquid nutrition, you have to test it in the training rides. You have to change your eating habits 3 days before the start. And to the second question, my sports doctor in the support crew, he has a small computer, a small tablet, and we have an Excel sheet, and he does all the calculations. He tells me when it's time to eat, and he tells me when it's time to drink. And because if you just listen to the feeling of being hungry and thirsty, it's working in your everyday life. It's working when you train, and it's working when you do a shorter race maybe, but it will not work anymore in a multi-day race, because the feeling of your body will not be accurate anymore. So you need some numbers and some solid strategy. And we found out that 500 calories per hour is the number which is working for me. When I go very fast in the beginning, I burn more calories than I actually eat and drink. So there is a little bit of a deficit. But that's no problem, because you have fat stored in your body. Your body, you will burn a lot of fat during performing. And maybe in the end of the race, I will reduce my calorie intake a little bit, but it's quite stable over 8 days. It's about 1 bottle of Insurer per hour, and the electrolyte drink depends on the temperature.
Thanks for sharing all of that. It is very interesting. I'm sure many will find that helpful for themselves. And of course, that last question came from Tony Kiani. Now, a couple more questions here, Christoph, and of course, we'll look forward to receiving more questions from all your fans and everyone in the Ultra-Cycling family for the next session. Jonathan Moore is wondering, what is your latest sleep, rest, micro sleep strategy? What does that look like for you in something like RAAM?
Very interesting. It's also something I'm writing in my book about, because you have different states of sleep deprivation. In the beginning of a race, you just get tired and you fall asleep, and you have to take care not to fall asleep and to crash. And that feeling will change over the race, and in the end of a race, you are not falling asleep on the bike, but you just get crazy. You forget things. You don't understand things anymore. You do not recognize your crew member. Maybe you think you're going the same way all the time. You just go a little bit of crazy. And when you sleep, you're like, your brain can recover. It's better again. And of course, the best strategy is to sleep as little as possible, but as much as necessary. And
that's well said.
Yeah, it's depending on the situation. I found out that having power naps of 20 minutes is a very good strategy. In the earlier years, like Yuri Robic, they went for 36 hours straight, and then they had 1 hour of sleep per night. And my strategy was a little bit different. I had maybe on the second day a first power nap during the day, in the middle of the day, so that I can cool down, be in the shade, do not get the very hot temperatures, and then keep on going in the second night, and then have another power nap during the day. So I'm much more flexible. But at the end of Race Across America, my sleeping time in total is about 6, 7, maximum 8 hours, which is very little time of sleep, but it is possible because my crew is great in helping me stay awake and keeping me motivated and talk to me and do funny things just to keep my high spirits.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. Very little sleep. And of course, we'll get into that much more in the next session when we talk all about the Race Across America and many more strategies. Now, you did also bring up again your book, and I did want to show the nice image here of that, where if folks want to ask more questions, well, they can, because the answers are here contained in the book. You've written many, many pages, and so it's comprehensive. It is available for folks to purchase. Oh yeah, and that's right. There it is.
It's also on the RAAM store, on the RAAM website, as well as on Amazon. And Vic Armijo, the media director of Race Across America media team, he was my my co-author with the English version. So there is a lot of Race Across America experience in the book as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So folks can stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you, Christoph, so much for sharing all of your wisdom, all of your experience with us. Of course, you have been in the ultra cycling world for many, many years. So it's nice to be able to hear from you, and also not just to learn from you, but to celebrate with you in all that you have accomplished through the many years. And of course, we all hope that there are many more years to come. Again, you are very entertaining to watch out there on the road. You give a good competition, but also you just very much are friendly, down to earth kind of guy. And so, of course, you give many lectures, and I hope folks can check those out someday if they're in the area, or perhaps if one day you're out here in the US as well, or all around the world. But we're glad that you had taken the time to write that book, and we'll all look forward to reading that and following along on the journey. But until our next session together, Christoph, I hope you continue to enjoy the remainder of your off season there, right?
No, off season is over. So I started training 2 days ago with the real training again. But off season was nice, yeah, and I had good recovery. And yeah, regarding lectures and Race Across America presentation, we are planning to do a live stream presentation in January. We are working on the details, but I will tell you, and I would be happy if of our listeners would tune in and watch it.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to tuning in there. But I know you're not on your off season anymore, but I did want to share these nice photographs, and we'll talk about that more in our next session together. But I like what you said here. Does mountain hiking make you a better cyclist? No, but it definitely makes you a happier one. So it's good to see that you are able to get out and be happy, and that you enjoy life and other things that you enjoy. Of course, this was a fun photo here. Celebrating the last days of the off season you wrote a few days ago. So glad you were able to do that, and you're able to find a lot of joy through your life. And so thank you again, Christoph. And thank you to everyone watching at home. Hope you learned a lot of good tips here. Christoph didn't hold back, and he's just a very genuine and candid guy. And we're thankful for somebody like him who is, you know, the best ultra cyclist in the world, with the achievements that he has in RAAM, the world records he's held, and all that he continues to do. And so we're thankful for an ambassador like him, and somebody that can help us all here in the ultra cycling family. So until our next episode together, everyone, keep spinning ultra.